As I think my colleague Bonian said, we had some shuffling in the agenda to be done today, so I'm delighted actually now to be able to welcome Mr. Kemais Jiniao, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Tunisia, who would have made his remarks earlier, but we're delighted, sir, to be able to welcome him.
Thank you very much, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished guests and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to join you today in the launch of the meeting of the Global Alliance for Reporting Progress and Promoting Peaceful Justice, just and inclusive societies. I want to express my thanks to current members of the Alliance and also to the UNDP as a facilitator of the initiative. Tunisia has fully supported and engaged itself for the inclusion of Goal 16 in Agenda 2030. This engagement stems from our deep belief, as it was stipulated in the preamble of the agenda, that there can be no sustainable development without peace and no peace without sustainable development. Promoting peaceful and inclusive societies, providing access to justice for all, and building effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions are key components to achieve sustainable development. We all share the increasing awareness of the crucial importance of the Goal 16 as it covers cross-cutting issues which could impact on the achievement of other goals of Agenda 2030. We cannot eradicate poverty or hunger, promote education, health, employment, and realize sustainable economic growth without good governance, without fighting corruption, without effective, strong, and accountable institutions, without peace and security, without sustainable peace and security. Our national experience is an appropriate example of these priorities. Striving to achieve the target covered by Goal 16 is one of the main concerns of Tunisians since the revolution of January 2011. It is the daily reality of Tunisia nowadays. Peace and security, good governance, justice, rule of law, effectiveness, and the accountability of institutions are key factors for the sustainability of the democratic transition in Tunisia. We have made tremendous strides, but there is still a long road ahead. We have adopted the democratic constitution, ushering the Second Republic in 2014. Fair and transparent legislative and presidential elections were held the same year. Our new constitution is one of the most progressive. It protects human rights and fundamental freedoms, enshrines the rule of law, recognizes the right of everyone to access to justice and the independence of the judiciary, and sets up the institution of the Second Republic. We are now striving to ensure the proper implementation of the constitutional provision. Let me highlight also the importance of the multi-stakeholders approach in our national experience, and likewise in implementing Goal 16 and the whole Agenda 2030. This is one of the principles around which our alliance was forged. Tunisia strongly believes in the power of partnership between government, civil society, and the private sector. Civil society and private sector have played and continues to play a major role in the Tunisian democratic transition. The quartet, which comprises 4 organizations, the Tunisian General Labour Union, the Tunisian Confederation of Industry, Trade and Handicrafts, the Tunisian Human Rights League, and the Tunisian Order of Lawyers, had led successfully the national dialogue and was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize 2015. As peace, combating violence and terrorism are covered by Goal 16, I wish to focus on the fight against terrorism, which is a very serious threat to our region and to the world. Defeating terrorism and ensuring the security of our citizens are currently among the top priorities of Tunisia. This is being done with the respect of human rights and the rule of law and the rule by law. It is very hard for countries that live under the terror of war, instability, and terrorism to achieve sustainable development. Unfortunately, many examples around the world attest to that sad reality. In our view, this is a demonstration of the inextricable link between peace, security, and development. Countries in conflict situations are hampered severely in their efforts to achieve sustainable development in all its dimensions, social, economic, and environmental. On the international level, we fully support 16.8, to strengthen the participation of developing countries in the decision-making within the institution of global governance. These are the main points that Tunisia will refer to in the next meeting of the Alliance. Finally, as a member of the steering committee of the Alliance, let me reiterate the commitment of my country to engage actively in the work of the Alliance in implementing and reporting on SDG 16 and call the other member states to join our initiative. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and I think everyone here recognizes that Tunisia's experience is really a crucial reference for this goal, both because of the issues that spurred the revolution, but most importantly because Tunisian society is an example of all three clusters of the goal: a focus on peace, a focus on justice, and a focus on inclusive institutions as part of the answer to development. I'm delighted now to be able to open the panel session in this event. I want to go back just very briefly to remind people of the overall objectives. So, as you know, summarised in the flyer for the event are the objectives of the Alliance. And I think it is absolutely great that this Alliance has a very simple and compelling theory of change behind it. And that is essentially that if we mobilise efforts on reporting on Goal 16 and its associated targets, we will also indirectly spur many efforts towards implementation so that we can show progress against those indicators. Of course, member states who we've heard from in the first session need to own and drive that. The reporting on the agenda is first and foremost an activity to be led by member states. But because in Agenda 2030 we have the fundamental principle of partnerships, and we know that unlike the MDGs, the SDGs were agreed in a different era, where it is no longer governments alone or development aid alone who are driving development. It really is the role, as the Minister said, of trade unions, of civil society, of business to come in and partner with this. So I'm very pleased that in this panel we have an opportunity to hear from many of those members. From the private sector and civil society, a former government minister and a senior UN official, and from the World Bank. I know that everyone will be keen to hear from the panelists, and I want to go directly into the discussion. So let me start please by turning to Professor Gambari, who I have known for long in his UN role in countries such as Myanmar and very centrally in the management of the United Nations, but of course also has a long career in reflecting on some of the issues that we are talking about today. Dr. Gambari.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And from the perspective of the Commission on Global Security, Justice and Governance, for which I was privileged to co-chair with Madam Albright, the former Secretary of State of the United States, Rule 16 provides the foundation for achieving all 16 of the other entities. And in a real sense, please permit me to be a bit parochial. Rule 16 represents an update of the seminal reports by two United Nations secretaries, both of them Africans, Budus Ghani, an agenda for peace and an agenda for development, and of course, Annan, and a larger paper. So they agree, both of them, that without peace and good democratic government, based on the rule of law in place, societies of all shapes and sizes cannot achieve broad-based and sustainable development. And that is why our Commission examined the root causes of protracted violent conflict and advocated innovative approaches to international peacekeeping and peacebuilding that place a premium on prevention, including especially through early warning followed by early action. Indeed, in my time here with the United Nations, I pursued similar kinds of innovation when, for example, the United Nations African Union Mission for Darfur, UNAMIS, which has oversaw diverted staff and material resources and considerable high-level political attention to finding better and more equitable ways to manage the critical and scarce source of water, which is very much at the heart of the conflict. In this effort, I wish to acknowledge the hugely important contribution by Qatar, as mentioned in the remarks by the Foreign Minister of the State of Qatar. This new global alliance that we are going to launch today therefore very timely and of critical importance, especially in its commitment to regularly assess progress towards advancing the implementation of the 16 targets. As I witnessed firsthand as UN special representatives or special envoys in the international effort to facilitate peace processes in Angola, in Iraq, in Myanmar and elsewhere, without concrete, time-bound and measurable benchmarks for targets that are assessed through associated qualitative and where possible quantitative indicators, key actors essential to building durable peace and effective governance cannot be held to account. Equally important is how reporting on those 16 targets will soon reveal the comparative positive advantages of minor actors in their specific contribution towards sustainable peace and justice. And to advance a progressive global reform agenda which is consistent with the aims of those 16, the Commission that I co-chair on global security, justice and governance advocates the creation of smart coalitions of like-minded states and non-state actors, including from within civil society and the private sector. Learning from such campaigns in recent years as the International Campaign to Ban Landmines and the Coalition for the International Criminal Court, single issue or single institution focused campaigns acknowledge that different kinds of multilateral reform ideas will require different kinds of multilateral negotiating forum and will proceed at different speeds. As I learned in creating the mediation support unit in the Department of Political Affairs, which I headed as Undersecretary General, innovation can be introduced rapidly when a few forward-leaning member states, the Secretary General and non-governmental organizations partner to come together in common cause with uncommon funding. The second reform vehicle, and one which I believe has the potential to capture the imagination and millions of citizens worldwide, is to organize in the run-up to the United Nations 75th anniversary a series of formal intergovernmental yet at the same time truly multi-stakeholder negotiations leading to the convening in September 2020 of a World Summit on Global Security and Justice. That such World Summit has the potential to take a step back and contemplate the international system and its institutions anchored around the United Nations and to adopt system-wide reform which seek greater coherence, reduce waste and duplication of effort, and encourage mutually reinforcing linkages between several interdependent issue areas, including global governance for improved implementation of the SDGs and, of course, SDG number 16. Let me conclude, Madam Chairperson, Madam Moderator, which one do you prefer? Madam Moderator, let me conclude by very briefly sharing one Goal 16 related reform idea that I hope we can discuss during the Q&A. With only advisory powers, I believe that the decade-old UN Peace Building Commission has come up short in its mission to halt fragile states from sliding back into deadly conflict. As recommended by my commission, the Security Council of the General Assembly should replace the upper defunct Legislative Council with the newly empowered Peace Building Council. Not just in terms of name, but in terms of adding the issue of prevention to the role of peace building. At the core of its new mandate will be early warning and early action to prevent the escalation of political violence, and also requires reform of institutions for justice and for peace. These are the kind of opportunities that I think should not be missed in our discussion of the continued relevance and the importance of this new alliance to really give action and rewards that are contained in that global SDG. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilbert. I'd like to turn now to Marcia Valesiano. Marcia is Group Director of Corporate Responsibility at RELEX and also part of the Global Compact. And will bring us, I think, an interesting perspective on the possibility of private sector and business support for reporting on this area of the agenda.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. RELX Group is a provider of information and analytics. We employ 30,000 people and operate in 40 countries around the world. We positively impact society through our unique contributions as a business. For example, we help scientists make new discoveries through our products that advance science and health, like Science Direct, the world's largest scientific database. We protect society through tools that detect fraud, including Global Watch List, which helps in the fight against money laundering. And we foster communities through exhibitions like World Future Energy Summit and World Travel Market that bring buyers and sellers together and advance markets, including for renewable energy and sustainable tourism. We also help lawyers and judges to make better decisions through resources like Lexis Advance that promotes the rule of law and access to justice. We collaborate with universities to educate students, and we support nation building with governments and courts by making laws accessible and strengthening legal infrastructure. On the panel today, I'm representing a corporate perspective on the Global Alliance for Reporting Progress. So what can business do? It can lend support, I think, by using its expertise. And for us, that means supporting the rule of law. And I have 4 brief examples, and you can see some images on the screen coming up. The rule of law, as we have heard this morning, is the basis for peace. But according to United Nations data, approximately 4 billion people live outside of its protection. So earlier this year, we launched a free LexisNexis Rule of Law Impact Tracker to explore the relationship between the rule of law and social and economic justice and development. This image is from its home screen. The tool shows that a country's rule of law score on the World Justice Project's Rule of Law Index closely correlates to key indicators of economic and social development. It uses data from the World Bank, from Transparency International, and the World Justice Project, providing evidence that stronger rule of law typically means higher GDP per capita and life expectancy, while it also means lower child mortality, homicide, and corruption. The tool shows that just a 5% increase in the rule of law adds 1 additional year of life. In my next image, I want to show something called Eyewitness to Atrocities. As companies, we should consider how can we help on the ground. Working with the International Bar Association, LexisNexis helped launch Eyewitness to Atrocities, our legal and business division. It's an app that allows citizens to securely and verifiably report human rights atrocities so that the information can serve as evidence in law courts. Now, anyone with an Android-enabled smartphone, from journalists and investigators to effective citizens, can download the free app and help bring perpetrators to account for crimes against humanity, including torture and war crimes. Eyewitness utilizes the same technology LexisNexis deploys to safeguard sensitive and confidential material for its clients. There have been about 7,000 downloads to date, and the IBA is working country by country with NGOs on the ground for implementation. Next, we have business for the rule of law. Where possible, companies should get involved with broader scale initiatives like this one. LexisNexis has been a driving force behind the UN Global Compact's Business for the Rule of Law. It's a framework to help business go beyond legal minimums to take proactive, voluntary action to advance the rule of law. To underpin ideas for the framework, launched in June 2015, we hosted 19 workshops, including in the US, the UK, Uganda, South Africa, Japan, and Myanmar, to bring members of the legal community, business, NGOs, academia, and civil society together to debate the issues. Business for the Rule of Law will include an example hub documenting documenting more than 100 examples of action to support the rule of law, including a telecommunications company which is partnering with the UN agency and a government department to create an automated birth registration system in the country to ensure that all births are documented. Our LexisNexis General Counsel tells the story of discussing the rule of law with a senior executive of a motorbike company who wanted to know what could a firm like his do. The answer was to look at the company's core strengths, and they donated motorbikes to attorneys who are using them to reach remote areas in order to provide pro bono legal assistance. Next, where possible, companies should also consider how they can support transitions to democracy. That image is from work that my colleagues are doing in coordination with the Electronic Information for Libraries to provide online legal research solutions to Myanmar's Yangon Law School and Mandalay Law School. In 2015, my colleagues from Malaysia and Singapore toured both law schools' facilities and met with faculty members and librarians to help strengthen the legal infrastructure of Myanmar. We're also building support for a pilot program in a rural village of Myanmar, Welgi, to establish a land registry database. The difficulty farmers face include being arrested and jailed for farming what they believe to be their land. Helping them measure and document land boundaries is the first step, and we will be collaborating with other companies which will deploy their unique skills, such as Google and Edulink, which has been endorsed by the Vice President of Myanmar. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving so many interesting and practical examples of how private sector, public sector partnerships and use of new technology can help in monitoring this area. I'd like to go next to Savio Carvalho, who leads for Amnesty International on Agenda 2030.
Thank you very much. Speaking on behalf of TAP Network, which is part of the same committee for the Global Alliance itself, and I co-chair TAP. For those who don't know TAP Network, it's an alliance of around 250 civil society organizations from 70-odd countries. And TAP has been engaged right through the negotiations, especially advocating for Goal 16. And TAP is committed to Goal 16, but also committed to the principles of accountability, participation, and rule of law. Just to sort of set the context in terms of Goal 16 is not a miracle for us. It has nothing which is like, wow, we never heard this before. I think it has all been there for the past like 5 decades. It's the rule of law, it's human rights. But the important thing is that it has got recognition in sustainable development. It has got that space. Though belatedly, we've been saying this for the past 40 years, but finally, and thanks to those member states and people who pushed for it, that it has got this recognition, and it's groundbreaking in a sense. Because we do recognize that peaceful societies and rule of law are like prerequisites. They are the baselines for development itself, be it the global north or the global south, east or west. However, member states got away without using the word accountability in the agenda itself. And for us, Goal 16 is a plank for that accountability. So you can have a brilliant Goal 16, but if that does not lead to accountability between people and governments, then Goal 16 for us is still paper, words, and no action. So what's the role of civil society per se? Civil society was part of the negotiations. We were in the room, thanks to the co-chairs and member states who supported our engagement. But I think we have a greater role right now in implementation and accountability. Many civil society actors across the world are partners with governments, with the private sector, with different actors in terms of taking the goals from words to action. But I think we also have this great role in accountability. We are involved in working with governments where there are gaps, but we just don't want to be gap fillers. We want to be important stakeholders in delivery of this agenda itself. We are also the link between governments and communities. Many a time when governments fail to reach their own people or fail to reach those who are excluded, marginalized, we quite often become that link, which we should not actually. It's the role of government, but I wish government recognize the role that we play, and we will continue playing that role. In terms of accountability, we heard this morning a few speakers who have mentioned accountability. I think I really want to highlight that point, that for us Goal 16 is something to do with accountability. It is the soul of this agenda itself. Reporting for us is important, it's key, but we just don't want to be reporting for no purpose and no end. Reports are there, like nothing is new, there's sufficient information, but we want reports to lead to action. For example, we want HLPF to take note of these reports and not have polite conversations that we seen in July just 2 months ago. You know, when you looked at the HLPF, we said, wow, is this the real place where there will be accountability? If that is the baseline, then I think we need a wake-up call, that we cannot have HLPFs of that nature. Going on, we just have to also look at where does human rights sit in the SDGs. They're everywhere in the text itself, but now we need to sort of take them from words to action, especially the minimum core obligations of member states. This is not something new. For example, sending girls to school, just as an example, we can't wait till 2030 to get girls to school. This should have been done 50 years ago. So we do not want a situation where member states now say, oh yeah, we have another 14 years, guys, have some patience. No, sorry, you have already missed that the slot there. And so there is a bit of resistance on a few minimum core objectives and obligations that member states have, and we want to hold member states to account for that. What are the key questions that we need to ask ourselves? As you notice, we face shrinking spaces everywhere, and a lot of member states are here. We see that we're intimidated, we are killed, we are pushed to the corner. How do you want us to operate in that agenda, in that scenario? We have to face this day in and day out. So the critical question is, what can all of us do, and that's the private sector too, to ensure that civil society space is protected and is respected, and we can get on and do our business the way we want to do it. And this is our role. And I think if you really appreciate that, then I think member states need to ensure that that role is kept open and we do not feel intimidated day in and day out, or even sort of denied access to certain parts of the world. So what do we do so I think just the important thing, in terms of the Global Alliance, which we are part of, we really think that this reporting should take us to that next level, from reports to action, and if there is no action, accountability and remedy. SDGs also have the potential, like the MDGs, to violate human rights. And we will have to keep a close watch on that to see, are the SDGs and our social policies linked to the SDGs violating human rights? And if that's the case, some of them have to be shown to the reports, and we need accountability and remedy where it's due. So what does the TAP network have to offer finally, just to sort of bring to that? We did this toolkit on Goal 16, which we are rolling out. In sense, this toolkit is going to help member states and civil society just to sort of get engaged with their own governments on how do we sort of work together to ensure Goal 16 is a reality for not just us as, in a sense, the 1%, but the 99% for whom this agenda actually has great hopes and ambition. This toolkit is available in English, Spanish, and French. It is translated in, right now as we talk, in Arabic, Russian, Chinese, Hindi, Bengali, and Portuguese. The focus has shifted from global, that is the UN, to national, and I think this toolkit is one of those pathways that we can actually ensure that civil society, NGOs, communities can get involved, working with their own governments and actually monitoring their own governments. We also want to do a national level workshop. We've done one in Asia to roll out this toolkit, but not just the toolkit itself, but to roll out why and how civil society should get involved in Goal 16. And we look forward as the network itself to collaborate with governments, with the UN, and with sort of like-minded agencies and governments to say, how can we do this together? So in conclusion, I think we are happy to be part of this alliance. We want to be part of this alliance, and we see that this is a great step forward with that recognition that if this does not lead to action, not in 2030, but as we go along, then we would let down not just all those who worked for this agenda, but people who actually look at this building and all this gathering to say, wow, there is some hope somewhere. So on that note, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Savio. I'll just pick up one of the many good points that you made, which was on the urgency of working on implementation and that we cannot wait until too close to 2030. My organisation actually did a mapping across Agenda 30 to look at which of the goals had partnership platforms for delivery in place already. And unsurprisingly, Goal 16, along with some of the other newer goals like inequality and oceans, do not have the kind of partnership in place for delivery that we really need to scale up. So I think we have to recognise that there are parts of Agenda 2030 that build strongly on the SDGs, on the MDGs rather. So of course they have new elements, they're now universal, but they have a very strong basis to build. This is an area in which we have, in development circles, less basis to build. And you're right, of course, to point out that for those coming from justice circles, in the content of the goal was not very much new. But for those who were born and grew up in development circles, these are issues that have not always been at the heart of the development agenda.